Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Gentleman's Standard. I'm Yor-El Francis,
I'm Cecil Burrowes.
and today's episode, we're talking legacy. You can have a great career and leave no legacy. The difference is whether you built anything that didn't need you to survive. And if I'm being honest, this is something I'm struggling with.
Um, I did too, from a topic-based perspective, as we're kind of going, this one's heavy. This one's really heavy. Listen, we spent what, 6 episodes now,
Yeah.
this
Uh-huh.
season, talking about how a gentleman builds himself, his standards, his presence, his composure, and how he carries weight. This episode is about the why, right? So as Yor-El said, this is called legacy. As we're going down path with this, and here's the deal: as you think about this statement, this theme, on what we're trying to tackle, attention, and legacy are not the same thing. Um, Attention is what people give you when you're in the room. We've talked about building yourself up for consideration, for attention on the on the social media feeds and news cycle, etc. Attention is what that is. Legacy is what remains after you've left. That's what you build yourself up to. How'd you make people feel as it relates to the presence that you had? You can have a lot of eyes following you and a lot of attention and leave absolutely no legacy to the point you made before. What happens after you've left? And quite frankly, a gentleman can build a profound legacy that almost no one notices while he's doing it. You and I can talk about that from our grandfather's perspective, our fathers, our uncles, our aunts, our mothers, others that have had an impact on our blueprint. Uh, the question of this episode will ask as we go through it is, which one are we actually building? So to hear you say you're struggling with this, I'm in the same space because it's ever growing what we're doing. We haven't retired yet, right?
Yeah,
For people to talk about what we did.
it's the thing that I really don't have an answer for. And I am struggling with this because I am thinking about legacy and what will my legacy be. And I'm thinking about legacy both personal and professionally. And it's, as you said, I've seen, those who've gone before me, and in a way, I am their legacy. So my question to me is, what will mine be? And I don't have an answer. I
Mm.
don't have an answer, and that's where I am. What is legacy? What does it actually mean, both personally and professionally?
So, um, one of the how this hit me, and I I think back to a time, uh, a family member of mine. It was at a funeral. No, I'm so sorry. I'm confusing that in my head. Forgive the old age. It was at a birthday celebration, and I had a family member stand up, and he talked about how he was really focused on leaving the right legacy for his kids. And for me, when I think about legacy, the way that I see it playing itself out is in from time to time when my daughter comes to and talks about the ways I've influenced her on some of the things that she's done. Now, she's her dad's daughter, right? And she and I we get to a point where we're competitors and peers and to a degree friends, but love her to death from that standpoint. And she challenges me consistently. But the things that I've tried to do and impart to her, when you see her playing that out, it tells you I built something of value in her life. And for me, that's my legacy in action. It hasn't fully been written yet, but to see something that you thought you would have an influence on, that when I inevitably leave, the inevitable happens, that you'll remember fondly upon, is what and how I take legacy. That's just in our personal lives. Professionally, there's things I've built personally um, that had long lasting value after it got taken from me. I for there was a period of time. One of my greatest accomplishments was being asked to take lead on running marketing based initiatives for a bank's expansion. Uh, I got put in as the lead marketing officer to run a particular bank's expansion as they were going, and I got moved from DC to Charlotte with me and my family, and I was responsible for seeing all the planning and strategy for new branches being opened, new customers being brought in the door. And me and a team worked together and developed what we call a playbook to make that happen. I had a heavy hand in that, helping build that. And we didn't really understand the value that we were developing at the time until that bank that we were working for got taken over by another bank.
Mm.
And that other bank that took us over, what inevitably happens when any bank takeover is the new bank comes in and want to show you how to do things the right way. Because obviously we took you over for a reason. You weren't at our level. And this was weird when the banks merged, because there were certain things that we did really, really well that this bank was willing to learn from. And there were other things that we had to learn from that standpoint. And one of the things we did really, really well is the work I was working on, which was expansion efforts. And there were, executives at this new location that weren't willing to hear that. They were like, "Yeah, what we do is really, really well received, and what you guys built is okay. We'll be fine." It took a few months for people to finally realize, hey, we actually need some things playbook wise that can help us as we go and strategize as we change how we do expansion in certain markets. Do y'all have anything off the shelf? It was like, wait a second. Things I didn't identify as value adds, you're now waiting for us to blow the dust off and come back. And that one of those efforts, one of those initiatives was, or resources was the playbook we developed. And that playbook actually got in the hands of executives, and they took some parts of it to help reframe their program and build some things up from that standpoint. For me, that's leaving a legacy of showing value, showing execution and activation on something I helped build and that got stood up and still to a degree is being leveraged today. Um, that's how I see legacy. Is you don't necessarily appreciate it in a moment, but when it's done with you and it moves into other rooms, people are using it without realizing it. You've built a strong legacy in that particular space for that effort.
I
Speaks to
think
all the things you bring to the table.
I think for me, uh, I feel like legacy is not really in the professional realm for me. Um, and the reason I say that is because I look at my father and
Hmm.
my grandfather and the people who've come before me. And, my father was an extremely successful man. He was one of the first millionaires in Liberia. He owned a bank. You named it, he owned it. Or, had a company that did it. And he died, and the only thing that's left are his kids. And so, so it's like, so for me, that whittles it down to legacy, and I have no children. So it's like that's really the resonating factor in legacy. Is it my career? Is that my legacy? And so again, I don't have the answer, but as I think about it and as I looked at the subject matter, I just thought it was really important to dive into deeply into it, beyond the surface. Because for me, it's an extremely important subject, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people are grasping and struggling with it. Uh, what do you leave behind? Uh, and that's the question. Is it your roles, as a leader in your organizations, which is a great legacy? Or is it, your DNA that's going to be walking around on the planet? And that's just human existential questions, which, you know, legacy is very esoteric. So, it's for me, it's a very interesting and heavy subject.
How many mentees would you say you have in the the entertainment industry that come to you, learn from you?
I I call them my movie children. I've got about maybe five of them.
Five of them.
Yeah.
And what was the reason they gravitated towards you?
Uh, I think my experience, and I was open, and they asked questions, and I was open to answering their questions, and then they kind of followed in my footsteps of the path I took to get to where they are now.
The For them to kind of recognize Yor-El as, hey, we got to go talk to him. What do you think led them to go, I got to go talk to, and not just your experience, I mean, experience is experience, but what made them want to talk to you?
Well, I mean, they were, strivers, so they knew that I had, a certain amount of, background and experience in the business. So that was the talking point or the starting point. It wasn't that, my sterling personality. They knew that, what I knew could
Sure.
help them. So, it started there. But as you mentioned a couple episodes ago, it developed into beyond just a mentor mentee. They're now peers and friends and colleagues, people who, I invite to my home, and people who I trust and confide in. So,
Have you found these individuals have some of the conversations you've had that kind of open their eyes and enlighten them has led them to do certain things differently or in ways to execute or strive in places where they may not have without that?
most definitely, because, um, they, yeah, most definitely. We're they're all African American, and so being African American in the business that we're in, we're very invisible. So yeah, for sure, they know that they have to just be a bullet, and shoot through.
So the reason I ask you all those questions is your point where you say you're struggling with understanding how legacy is how legacy shows up relative to things you do. I would challenge your point around legacy and professional environments in the sense that I think you have built a substantial legacy with those individuals that you've influenced who've reached out to you and you see it playing out in the ways that they perform. I think that's an element of your legacy that's shown up so well because obviously people have recognized the work that you've put in, the level and standard that you've established. People want a piece of that. They want to understand how you got there and did that. And now when they learn from you around how to do that and they're able to apply that, for me, you call them your movie children. There's a reason why, because that's kind of your legacy by the time it's done from that standpoint, right? And once you've exited the industry and finally retired to whatever island you're going to retire to, it's these are the
Because it will
things.
be
It will be an
an island.
island. That I know it will be an island, but those are the things where they're going to continue to execute, and hopefully they're paying back to others. But it started with them asking you a question, and that's your legacy, in my humble opinion.
Yeah, understood. I just think that I just feel like it's definitely a subject that, as you get older, you start to ponder.
Sure.
And the funny thing is, it's something I've been thinking about a lot
Yeah.
lately.
Yeah.
Um, so when I saw this on our roster, I was like, damn, we got to talk about that.
Well, look,
So,
so the numbers bear this out, right? And you know we got those stats in here, right? So mentees are 5 times more likely to be promoted. Mentors are 6 times more likely to be promoted. Why? Because if you're a mentor, you're absolutely showing value somewhere for people to want to come and learn from you. Mentees are getting some of the blueprints in some cases they're skipping a base or two because they've got advocacy from a leader of value from that standpoint. A lot of people aren't mentors for a reason. There's some folks that that sit in um, industries that really shouldn't be giving anybody feedback. I'm going to just say it and be real about it. Um, 9 in 1 workers with a mentor say they're happier in their careers. I know I am. I know I'm successful because of the feedback and insight and goodwill that people poured into me because they saw something in me. And I was all too happy to give that back to others. And what I've been the most proudest of in my career is the mentees that I've had who've turned into friends, peers, and in some cases leaders past me in my chair. Um, Still confide in me, reach out to me when something breaks. I mean, I have folks that are literally on the executive committee that will reach out to me and be like, dude, I need your advice on this. And they're 2 or 3 levels above me at this point, but they remember how I made them feel and the value I brought to their lives. And for me, that's bringing value to me from that standpoint as well, because I get to also learn from my mentees. And that's the thing that I learned early on is that mentors are also looking for insight from folks that have a different perspective. So it's a value add all around, and that's for me that's pure legacy because the same way we're doing that at work, we're doing that at home with our kids. The same way I can say my wife's legacy is the way that she's managed our family for me consistently is something I am in awe of in the way that she's gotten us to where we are today, and assisting us and listening to us and dealing with us because we drive her crazy. For her legacy is the ways that she's been able to make sure this family dynamic has been able to survive all these years. That's an impressive legacy to kind of work through. So I see legacy habits and payoffs in the professional and personal spaces consistently. It always has an impact. Always has an impact.
Okay. Um,
You're not won over
is
yet.
I'm still on the
You're
fence,
still
but
on the
we'll
fence.
continue
You're still on
talking.
the fence. I get it.
Um, so at this point, part of our legacy is this podcast.
Yeah.
Um, and
That is an amazing point. Yes, I would agree. Once we're
yeah,
done, hopefully this thing gets played by somebody who just I needed a boost. I needed a boost.
but uh, people are exposed to over 5,000 pieces of content daily,
Yeah, that's
right?
true. That's true.
Um, it's like, how do you build a legacy from that? And how do you garner the attention, and then turn that into legacy?
Oh, ask that in another way, if you don't mind.
Well, it's social media versus lasting impact. Like it's being a flash in the pan versus um, meaningful conversations. And I would hope that for me, uh, these conversations that we're having are meaningful conversations. They're conversations about building structure.
Yeah,
They're conversations about striving. They're conversations about carrying the weight of relationship, being a leader. There are conversations about being composed. There are conversations about grooming yourself towards greatness. And so the question behind the question is, in this world of bite-sized pieces of information, how do you hone in and carry forward, leaving a lasting legacy with something meaningful that you have to say?
it's tough.
Yeah, it is.
Um, so what you're talking about is an attention economy, right?
Yeah.
From that standpoint, and actually adding something of value um, in a world where it's just a facade, right? And by the by, facades get paid a lot of money with bots and things along those lines. So um, I, it's going to sound like a bill of goods, but I'll put it to what you and I and how you and I went about the gentleman standard conversation. It was an innocent discussion around, listen, we're so tired of the hype bro bullshit, and the selling you something for the sake of selling you, be like me, and we wanted to come at it from a different place and be like something as simple as something that was given to you by your grandfather. I said, listen, I want to give you kind of a blueprint on how to be a gentleman because gentlemanly standards matter, right? And you're like, I'm struggling with how to get this out because I think it'll be helpful and kids need this today. And you and I discussing it and trying to figure out like, how do we do this? We're two, guys that were successful in our careers to the degree of things that we wanted to accomplish and do. Success is in the eye of the beholder, how we make that happen. Like, how can we do that, dude? And the beautiful part about today's times is if you want to do it, you can do it. You got resources. It's very easy to do, right? You can purchase equipment, you can purchase access, and just talk. And we wanted to provide some feedback, innocently so, in a chaotic world where people are just looking for another voice. People are always looking for another voice in this attention economy, and do it in an authentic way. If you do that and bring your true self to the conversation without trying to sell you something, which is we're not selling you on, hey, do it this way and come to our next speaking engagement. It's going to cost you $2,500 to be in the room with us. We literally, the thought of this pod was to say, look, if you had the benefit of just sitting around with your dad and uncles around a table who were shooting the shit, and we're trying, because that's when we learned a lot, whether they intended for us to learn or not. That's when you learned a lot. When their guards were down and they were having a conversation, you just learned about family. And we wanted to provide that type of setting to, quite frankly, young professionals in the space that don't have that, may not have had that type of dynamic in the household, are lost, don't feel like hearing it from their parents, right? And they want to hear it from somebody else. I struggle with that from time to time. My daughter doesn't want to hear it from me. She wants to hear it from somebody else, from that standpoint, right? And we figured we can, give you another voice. So approaching it in that way, it's going to, in my humble opinion, Yor-El, is going to find the intended audience. And that's how I think about it. I'm like, I don't think tomorrow we're going to wake up with 100 million followers. I just hope that the right person, it could be, Charles, who all of a sudden I just needed to hear something that gives me some direction so that it can help me get through tomorrow. And if it can reach him on that particular day, why the hell not do this? What shocked me, quite frankly, in the best way possible, is our first episode. The first question we got asked from the gentleman standard was from a female business owner who was looking for feedback around how she shows up from a grooming based perspective, because the way the industry that she's in, she's working through challenges on how to appropriately show up to win clients. And this is something you and I absolutely know a lot about. And we were able to articulate to her, like, think about this in a different way. And I was so happy about the fact that, listen, we call it the gentleman's standard, but everybody's welcome to the table. From that standpoint, it's about establishing standards. So to answer your question directly, is the fact that we were authentic in our mission and our goal. We're not trying to sell you on anything. And hopefully it reaches the right intended audience who just is looking for something else, man. And if we can do that and we can accomplish that, I feel great. Whether it's 30 people or 1 million people, I'll feel
Yeah.
fantastic.
I also think that I think that legacy is ongoing. I think that it's sort of like composure in a way.
Yeah.
It's something you build. Um, and I guess that's the reason why I'm struggling with it, because I think I'm still building.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's sort of not a clear path, but I know that there is a path. And I think that it's okay that, I'm still building and still figuring it out. Um, but I know that in the future there will be, an epitaph with whatever that legacy is.
Well,
But what it is, I don't.
if I can make a quick point, because
Uh,
to to your point around the attention economy and how you're building from that standpoint, these two come together, right? Average social
Yes.
media attention span dropped 8 seconds in 2025, down from 12.
Mm.
Dropped to 8 seconds, down from 12.
Up to 8 seconds. Yeah.
Users are exposed to over 5,000 pieces of content daily. So if you're in this for, if you're in this a luck box, and you work with all these 8,000 people, because the minute we drop the podcast, we've got 8,000 people reaching out to us to say, hey, I can figure out I can show you how to make your podcast number one, and just pay me $200 or $300 or whatever. Your point around building, a person who builds their identity around being seen, right, in this type of environment, in quite frankly, is building on sand. The
Mm.
attention is not the same as impact, right? From
Yeah.
what we've seen, and viral, which is cool, is not long lasting. There's a reason it goes viral. It burns hot as hell, and hopefully it can help you. One of these goes to some degree, sure, great, but it's gonna fall right back down. Legacy does not fit in a 30-second clip. It just doesn't. It just won't. We've got to be authentic and bring our true selves to this conversation, because it builds upon itself. We won't hit it trying to be viral.
So basically, what I'm hearing is this is just to put a little twist in it. Uh, the creator economy has a legacy problem,
I would agree. I would agree with that.
and it's like you can have an enormous audience, but still be vapid and leave nothing behind.
I think some people are okay with that. I think some people make the decision between, do you want to have a legacy or you want to be rich? And I don't care how toxic the advice I give you is, as long as I'm viral and I can get the mentions and follows and all the things that I need for a hot second and make a lot of money. Because if you listen to everybody, everybody's getting paid, a couple $100,000 a month giving advice. And they're okay with that. But that lasts for about a month or two from that standpoint. But folks that really build a strong, long-lasting legacy, people want to listen to over and over and over and over again. You've added some feedback and some sanity in a space of chaos and crisis. And our goal is to try to give you some type of calculated, what was the discipline around how you establish and maintain a standard. That's what we're trying to do here. It's going to take time. It's going to take conversation. It's going to take intentionality around where we're coming from, without the worry about whether we're viral or not for a hot second.
Intentionality.
I had to pull that out. Uh-huh. Yep. That's my thought.
Um, well, we touched on mentorship as legacy, which I think is important. You brought it up, and yeah, I can't say that it has not been important for me. It's been actually enriching to see my mentees get to the places that they are and achieve success in our profession. Um, and I think that as leaders, that's a goal, and definitely something that you can leave behind as legacy, um, for sure.
The one thing you need to ask yourself, and you and I ran across a stat: 83% of Gen Z workers believe having a mentor is important for their career, right? But only half of Gen Z workers have one. So why? Why is that? And this is you investing in your career on individuals that you are influenced by. Those individuals are working on establishing a strong legacy. Legacy speaks in ways that um, I'm sorry, legacy speaks for you, right? There's a reason why people sought you out to get feedback and advice. There's a reason why Gen Z individuals, new professionals, are going to seek people out, is because your legacy speaks for you without you saying a word. Quite frankly, in my humble opinion, that's how I approach it. What I will say is, for those executives who have never ever had a mentee, why is that? What does that say for you? And what can you do to reverse course on that? Because it's important that you've influenced others, not just individuals in your household. That's easy. That's your job. That's your responsibility. Your kids should look up to you. Your kids should follow the blueprints you pulled in play. But if you're in a professional environment and you don't have anybody looking and asking for your insight and your feedback, that tells you your legacy isn't speaking for you, right? And it speaks volumes to the value you bring when individuals seek you out and want to stay connected to you. That is your legacy, in my humble opinion. 83% of Gen Z workers believe having one is important, but 50% of them don't have one. That's crazy in today's time.
Well, I ask myself
Hmm.
in as I struggle with this topic, uh, what am I building right now?
Mm. Mm.
And that really is the question, you know. It's and I I I'm speechless. What am I building right now? Um, and I know that I have things that are going in my life that are successful, but it's one of those things that it kind of stumps you because you have to think about not being here. And I think that is what I am struggling with, as far as legacy, because legacy means you are leaving behind. And you know, it's just it's an existential question, as I said before. Um, what am I building?
Yeah, you. What was the line on how that you had? That this is so dope and deep. Having a great career and leaving behind. The difference is whether you build anything that didn't need you to survive.
Right.
Man, build something that didn't need you to survive is so freaking dope, by the way. the the from my perspective and what I'm working on is I want to make sure I'm an amazing father to my daughter. That she sees that in whoever she finds that she settles with, um, wherever and however she settles. And she goes, I need to make sure I have somebody like that in my life when
Hmm.
he's no longer here. That I've treated her mother with enough respect to where she expects that, in her relationships going forward. That her friends that come around us see it in our family, that we have a strong family unit. And I do it without thinking about it. I just do it because it's what I've tried to see in my family members around me, right? And the blueprints that were pulled in play. Whether it would saw it in the wrong way, quite frankly, or saw it in ways that I could learn from. The positives and the negatives. You learn from both in my person, and then family members that can rely on me, right? So you got that personal side of things because we carry so much weight, and making sure that I'm carrying weight the right way and I'm showing up the right way. And I have an impressive uh, footprint leading up to where I go. To when I finally exit and my footprint leads to nothing, have I built things where people go, yeah, that footprint may have stopped, but understand that that man's footprints were extremely impressive throughout that process in my personal life. Professionally, that I've built things that are long lasting, whether it's items, resources, programs, or relationships where people can call off and fondly remember the engagements with me because I they felt as though they got something good out of learning, not learning from me all the time, but just having me around them. I have
Right.
several people I can call on who have had a lasting impression on my career, that I've said, I wouldn't have gotten to where I was if this person hadn't been in my life and gave me at the right time at that moment. And that's a legacy component for me because they didn't have to do that. They didn't have to pour into me when they did. And I really appreciate that. And it's because of the way that they perform and treat others. For me, that's a legacy trait, that's pulled in play. And they built that, in a way, in some instances, without needing applause. They didn't do it to say, hey, I want to make sure people appreciate that and pay it back. They're doing it because that's just how they're built. And I learned some of that, and I try to give that back as well, from that standpoint. And then that led to things like I talked about before. You and I are trying to build a which could lead to some type of programming empire, right? That gets into insight and feedback that we hope is long lasting. That once we leave this plane, does somebody eventually play this and go, look, man, these guys, they had something here. They had an idea together. It just kind of made sense. And it's helpful. It's helpful for me. I'm able to talk myself off a ledge. Who the hell knows when we get into conversation around weight? Because when we talk about things breaking people, sometimes it ends them. I talked about that a couple episodes ago. Some of these things will end people. And I'm hoping our words
Mhm.
resonate with somebody that talks them off that brink, right? That last brink. And my legacy would be, did we make enough of a case to save somebody from considering something that they should have never considered in the first place?
Well, I don't want to be all doom and gloom, so I shall say, I feel that legacy-wise, a career is what you build for yourself, and a legacy is what you build for others. And what you just said illustrates that very clearly. And I think that that's something to aspire to. I think that's something that equals the gentleman's standard. And that's something that we're about. It's not about attention. It's not about applause. It's about making the people who are around you better. And in doing that, you make yourself better. And I think that equals legacy. So I don't want, to come across as I have an idea, but it is something I'm struggling with. But I do have some understanding of what legacy should be.
Can we put a challenge out? I'm liking these challenge call to actions when we're doing
Why not?
these. So before the week is out, anybody that's
Hmm.
following this, reach out to one person who you have invested in, right? Or could invest in. Um, and I would say make a call, not an email, not a text, a call, and pour into them, or thanking them for pouring into you, and expand that conversation. For my perspective, that's where legacy starts.
And I would say on the flip,
Hmm.
um, be unafraid to be open to allowing someone to help you and guide you and navigate you through whatever it is. Because I think that's the other side of legacy. Because you have to also be open. And I think that that equals, carrying it. It's like you're paying it forward, but then also don't be afraid of being vulnerable. Um, and I think that's the lesson.
With set standards comes strong legacy. And our goal
Yeah,
here is to ensure that we're giving you different ideas around how to build, curate, and be stewards of your standards. Plain and simple.
exactly. We have two different experiences, as you can tell from this conversation, and we just want you to listen and take whatever you can from this conversation and apply it as you will.
I would agree.
Well, thank you guys for listening. Cecil, is there anything else you want to add?
No, no, I'll say this. Well, I say no, and then I say this. we we've covered quite a number of things: how a man builds himself, carries himself, and maintains himself, and now what he builds for others. Our next episode will be in relation to connections, and that's how a gentleman shows up in relationships and community. So that's the next topic. Looking forward to having you all join us in that discussion. We've got a lot of great stuff to come. Feel free to start reaching out. Questions that may come up, different ideas. feedback. We're looking for it. Make sure that you're hitting subscribe and like buttons in all the formats that we're sharing this information on, which is Apple, Spotify, YouTube. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're getting on TikTok. It's starting to resonate. We're seeing some good return and great feedback being sent our way already. We need more. If there are other topics that you want us to consider to bring up that builds on this narrative of building a gentleman's standard, share them with us. We'd be happy to tackle and do some research around it and have, quite frankly, conversations around how that ties back to industry. Be prepared as we bring in guests from the entertainment industry and from the corporate industry to have this conversation around what it takes to build and maintain a set standard and how it's helped them to get to where they are. So I'm excited about some of those relationships that are going to come and opportunities for additional conversations and discussions. So stay tuned. Good things are coming.
Absolutely. Thank you for listening to the Gentleman Standard, guys. Have a great day.
Have a great one.